When we talk about ancient Roman paganism, we are referring to the people before and during the Roman Empire who spent about 2,000 years and lots of energy conquering every other kingdom around them. However, rather than force their gods on the subservient country, they just added in the new ones. One great example of this is Epona, the Celtic horse goddess who became very popular with the Roman cavalry. Epona's statues have been found in stables all over Europe. Hi, I'm Amy, founder of Celebrate Pagan Holidays. Today we are continuing our exploration of different pagan paths and doing an introduction into Roman polytheism. You can check out the previous ones on Egyptian and Greek. Today, Rome is a thriving cultural mecca, but it was once a small group of tribes that began governing themselves and becoming a more cohesive society. Ancestor veneration is important, and major holidays like Paternalia celebrate one's ancestors with rituals. Observance of precise rituals was important in Roman polytheism. Ancestor spirits influence their living relatives' lives. Ancient Romans sought advice and approval from deceased family members. You can design an ancestor altar in your home. This is mine. One of the foundations of Roman paganism is the family altar or shrine. This was typically located in their atrium or front room, or in small apartments by the hearth. Smaller, minor altars were often placed in bedrooms. Each family had deities and ancestors that they prayed to. Traditionally, morning and evening rites were done. A flame was important at Roman altars. They often used an oil lamp, but today we often light candles during prayer times. Incense was commonly burned. Resins such as frankincense or myrrh were very popular during Roman times, as were sandalwood and rosemary. Neighborhood shrines were also common, and like the household shrine, you were expected to offer up prayers and offerings to the gods. Festivals were very popular. The Romans loved to party. Some records show that there were up to 135 days in a year for celebrating the gods. These things were all important because they wanted to maintain good relationships with the gods. Religion was practiced by all people, men, women, and slaves in Roman society. Roman religion was and is very practical. They had the expression, I give that you might give. Prayers, rituals, and making offerings were very important daily tasks. There are lots of questions about the relationship between Greek and Roman gods. We are going to talk more about this, but first, yes, the Romans had a pantheon before they conquered the states of Greece. Let's look at some of their early deities. Roman mythology is tied very closely to the ancestors and the ruling government. Romulus and Remus were raised by a she wolf after being saved from drowning by the river god Tibernus. Depending on which myth you read, one or both become leaders, with Romulus becoming the first leader of Rome. Timurus was one of the older gods. Straw dollies were thrown into the Tiber River each spring to honor him and keep him happy. Some of the early gods never had or developed a Greek correspondent, such as Janus, who represents beginnings and endings, passages, doorways, and gates. Jupiter, king of the gods, also called Jove, symbolized by the golden eagle, lightning, oak trees, and the underworld. Kings and later the patricians wore his symbols on their cloaks. Jupiter was originally part of a triad that included Mars and Cairnus. Cairnus was originally a god of the Sabines, who was adopted from their pantheon. Later, this trio became the capital triad, with Minerva and Juno joining Jupiter. Their Greek counterparts would be Zeus, Hera, and Athena. I love how they all have their birds in this statue with an owl, eagle, and peacock, respectfully. Jupiter's daughter is Fortuna, and she remained very popular throughout the Middle Ages and into the Renaissance period. I have several videos on Roman gods, and one is on Fortuna. I will link them below. I enjoy working with Fortuna in the spring as she is a goddess of agriculture. Vesta was another early goddess in the Roman pantheon, and her followers were the Vestal Virgins, a sacred priesthood for women. Vesta was the goddess of home and family and was highly regarded in Roman society. The Vestal Virgins were a very unique cult. Young girls were chosen and committed 30 years of their lives to chastity and serving the goddess. They were well respected and upon their retirement were given a pension. During their time in service, they kept the hearth lit and performed rituals. It was rare for one to have an affair, but if they did, the punishment was to be buried alive. So, back to the question of Roman and Greek gods being the same. Romans started conquering Greek states around 200 BC. They were intrigued by Greek deities, philosophers, and their doctors. Sadly, the Romans took many Greeks into slavery to bring them to Rome as tutors and teachers. In turn, Romans brought to Greece their political ideals about government, laws, and architecture. Fun fact: one reason the Romans were so accepting of other deities was because they knew the value of appeasing the people. And the bottom line was that they wanted to tax them. Money and trade goods was their priority. While Greece was part of the Roman Empire, Greek gods were blended into the Roman pantheon. Often they were given a Latin name and presented as a new deity. Romans also adopted Celtic, Persian, and Egyptian deities. The red shows their territory at the height of their power. The black arrow points to the actual city of Rome. This is rather simplistic and silly, but there are some differences between the Greek and Roman deities. Greek gods were named based on personality traits and had a defined physical appearance. They were very human, shall we say. The Greek myths were quite lengthy and complex. Think of the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Roman counterparts are named after objects, often the planets. Their representation of the gods was more warlike and militaristic. Romans had a very organized priest class who were often the political leaders. They believed in an afterlife and felt mortals must seek to be good so they could join the gods. Like with Greek paganism, there are several groups of neo or reconstructionist Roman pagans. Nova Roman is one of the bigger ones, with groups throughout the world. As I always tell you, please investigate any group carefully before joining and make sure you are comfortable with them. And of course, you may always practice as a solitary pagan or add Roman gods into your eclectic practice. Divination was common in ancient Rome. Some forms, such as haruspicy, were very specialized and maybe a tad gross. Haruspicy involved reading the entrails of sacrificed animals, such as the liver, gall, heart, lungs, and ghoul. Soothsayers were minor priests, and they were often consulted by generals before going to war. Another form of divination often used by military leaders was throwing grain to the sacred chickens and watching their behavior. This would foretell the outcome of a military conflict. Scrying was another popular form of divination. I have a free download on the website that tells how to make a scrying mirror. I hope this information has been helpful. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Leave me a comment telling me what interests you. Thanks for watching and have a very witchy day.